Hey friends, welcome back for another video. My name is Tanya, for those of you that are new here, and I am a watercolor artist. So I just wanted to start out with this video by saying thank you. I reached 2,000 subscribers last night. I'm so excited. I love teaching. I love teaching you. I love bringing you new ideas and inspiring you. So continue to please watch my videos. I'm really enjoying doing this for you. But today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to be painting on canvas with watercolor. Yes, I said watercolor. It can be done, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So I hope you enjoy the video. Today I wanted to show you how to paint with watercolor on canvas, and the way we're going to do that is we have to use what's called a watercolor ground. It's kind of like a gesso when you prime your canvas for acrylic paints, but this is a watercolor ground, and what it's going to do is going to give you a little bit more of an absorbent surface for your watercolors to absorb. So it says here that you have to apply 2 to 3 layers, and you can add a little bit of water to this just to thin it down a little bit, and you want to let it dry for about 24 hours. So my suggestion to you is, if you're going to be painting a bunch of canvases, why don't you prime them all first and then let them dry overnight, and then you just have your canvases ready to go, so you're not waiting 24 hours to start your next painting. So I'm just taking a brush that I don't really care about. It's a very used brush. It's actually an acrylic brush. And I'm going to be applying a little bit of my watercolor grounds. I keep wanting to call it gesso because it is kind of like a gesso. And it's white. It's just got a consistency of paint here. And you're not going to really see it going down on the canvas because it's white on white. So if you want to look at it from an angle, you'll see the shimmer of that it's wet, and then you'll know where you applied it already. So I'm adding just a little bit of water to this just to let it kind of spread a little bit more evenly. And you're not supposed to use a lot of water, but you can use a little bit of water. And all I'm doing is I am taking my brush and I'm dipping it in a little bit of water, and then I'm just going over where I just went with the watercolor grounds. And I'm going in one direction, and don't forget to get your sides too. If you're going to be painting your sides, and actually even if you're not going to be painting your sides, it's good just to get your sides with the watercolor ground as well. It just makes it look a little bit more like of an even, that you're applying it evenly across the whole canvas. So I know that I just did the top there, so I'm going down. I'm cutting my canvas in like thirds. So I'm doing the top portion, the middle portion, and then the bottom portion. It just depends on how big your canvas is. And then I'm slowly going over it, the whole thing, everything I just did, just to kind of make it go on a little bit more smoothly. And then it doesn't look like that I did it in sections. And you're going to want to let this dry completely before you put on your second or third coat. It says to apply 2 coats. You can even get away with, it says apply 2 to 3 coats, and I think you can get away with 1 to 2 coats, actually. Probably 2 coats is enough. But if you put it on kind of thick, I would say even 1 coat is enough. There, so that's my first coat. And you're going to want to wash your brush really, really well. Just because I'm not really sure, even with gesso, even if you were just doing with gesso, you'd want to wash your brush really, really well with soap and water. So we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to apply our second coat, and then we're going to get started. Okay, so I have applied 2 coats of this watercolor ground. You can buy this in many different brands, but this is just a brand that I had here at the house, so I used it. And it says on here to apply 2 to 3 coats. I applied 2 coats. I felt that that was enough. I let it dry for 24 hours, and I did go over, if you want a little bit of a smoother feel to it, I did use a 220 fine grit sandpaper, and I just kind of went over it very lightly, very lightly go over it, and then just use a brush and just kind of wipe it away so that you don't have any of that dust on there. And then that should really take care of any little bumps or anything that you had on there that maybe had dried, because sometimes this will leave a little bit of like a little rough edge. So you just want to get rid of that just so you have a nice, smooth, clean surface. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to be doing just a whimsical landscape. And I'm just going to use a pencil, an eraser. I've got my watercolor, my Winsor Newton watercolors, and then I'm just using just generic brushes, nothing special today. And I do have my 2 cups of water, one for cool and one for warm colors. Okay, so we're going to lightly sketch in just a landscape. I just picked an odd size canvas today. I just picked it up just to show you. I wanted a smaller size canvas to work on for this video. So I'm just going to kind of pencil in maybe just some hills or some mountains. And I just want to show you how this watercolor works on canvas. This is a whole new world for me. I usually work on Arches watercolor paper and sometimes Canson watercolor paper. But I was introduced to this watercolor ground years ago, actually. I just chose never to use it. And all of a sudden, something just sparked in my head the other day, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go find that little container I have of the watercolor ground, and I'm going to experiment with it. So that's what I did. So this is actually a couple years old. I don't even remember where I picked it up. Okay, so I'm just going to be penciling in some hills. And this tutorial is more just to show you about how watercolor works on canvas. All right, so I am going to take my watercolors, and I think I'm going to do a purple. You know what, I should probably gone ahead and wet some of my colors here. I'm just going to pick up some colors that I have on my palette already. Some of these are watercolor, and actually most of them are watercolor. I believe 1 or 2 might be a gouache. I do have a couple gouaches on my palette here. I'm not sure I'm going to be using those today. I might, but right now I'm just using my regular watercolors. All right, so just to show you, there is a couple differences from using canvas versus watercolor paper. Number one is you will see a little bit more of that texture on here. Canvas has a normal texture to it. It's all the little peaks and valleys, kind of like the watercolor paper, but I believe that on the canvas it's a little bit more pronounced. So I guess it just depends on how many layers of the watercolor ground you put on here. Maybe you're able to get rid of some of those little peaks and valleys, but I actually like that because most of my paintings have a lot of texture in them. So it doesn't bother me. All these little marks here that you see, that doesn't bother me at all. All right, so go ahead and wrap your canvas too, just in case you don't frame this one day, you just want a nice clean edge. I always paint the edges of my canvas just because if you don't frame it, it just looks a little bit more put together. Pick up a little more purple. All right, so see how I painted the edges of my canvas where the purple was. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and plop in a little bit more of that purple on here, just to show you that you can get some darks on here. Now, one of the other differences with working on canvas versus the paper is when you work on paper, when you apply it down, you can lift up your paint a little bit if you want to, if you wanted something to be lightened up. On canvas, it automatically just picks it up for you. So you have to kind of go in with a light hand because it will start, well, I'll show you when it gets to a darker color. Right now, the light is not picking up. The lighter tone is not picking up, which is fine. That's what I want. But when you're starting to go in with darker tones, and then you apply, let's say you want to add another layer of watercolor to what had dried, it will pick up your first layer. You kind of have to go in with a light touch, otherwise it will pick up your first layer more easily than it does with the paper. And I'm just going in and I'm laying down a little bit more of this purple. And when it dries, it looks so pretty, the way it blends together. And then sometimes what I do is, because I love texture and I love blooms, I go in and I add some more water to it because as it dries, it evaporates and it just kind of makes all these little blooms. And I love, especially on my landscapes, I love all those little blooms that it creates. So you don't have to do this, but what I do is I go in and I add just some clean water to my paint. And I just love the way that that starts to dry. Very textured, so it's not gonna have a smooth look. You can get a smooth look with this if you want to, but I believe that it's easier to get a smooth look with the paper than the canvas. All right, and what I did there was I just applied the wet paint to the dry canvas, but I'm gonna show you now wet on wet. So what I'm going in and doing is with my brush, I'm just applying some water to one of the other little hills here in my landscape, because I want to show you the wet on wet. Okay, so let's choose maybe a blue. Go in, and I'm just mixing up a blue on my palette there. So see how it kind of gives you a nice light look? It's because you already applied the water. So whatever color you mixed on your palette, which I'll show you, whatever color you mixed on your palette is gonna go in a little bit lighter because you already applied that water. I do like the fact that with the canvas versus paper, you can lift up. I'm gonna show you a little bit later when this dries that if you wanna go in with some white highlights on some of your objects, it's easy with the canvas just to go over it with water and dab it off with a paper towel, and you will see the white of the canvas again. Maybe not exactly as bright as this, but you will see it. Versus the watercolor paper, it stains it a little bit more, so you don't see the white of the paper as easily, I should say. Let's go in and drop a little bit more of this darker blue. And again, I love texture, so I'm going in with little strokes. I'm just pouncing my brush, going in with little strokes. If you wanted this to be a nice smooth area, you can achieve that too, but do you see how it's not gonna be as dark? It's not gonna be as dark. So if you want a little bit of a darker area, you kind of have to just drop down your paint and leave it alone. So I'm gonna drop down a little more paint here since I just went ahead and picked that up. And I'm trying to get a nice crisp line here, but it's not letting me get a very crisp line. As it dries, it starts to get a little bit rough in certain areas. So just try not to fight that too much. You're just gonna have to kind of embrace that. You may get a clean, crisp line here and there, but sometimes you don't. So don't get frustrated. That's just the way it is with the canvas. You may not get a nice crisp line in all your areas. Some areas, yes, some areas, no. There's no rhyme or reason. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna apply some more water because I love the way that the texture it's making as it dries. As you can see here, it's already pulling up the paint. It's trying to bring the paint to the edge here of my painted area. All the pigment is trying to go to that edge. So I like that. If you don't like it, again, don't apply this extra layer of water to it. You're just gonna wanna let it dry and do another layer of the paint once it dries. I don't wanna go in and do this middle part right here because these two edges are wet and it'll just all bleed together. So I'm gonna go ahead and I see that this edge is drying right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this section down here. All right, so I'm gonna pick up some green here. Just mix it. I had a little bit of yellow on my palette. All right, and I think I'm gonna add a little bit of sap green to that, just to tone it down a little bit. There we go. All right. So I'm just adding paint to a dry canvas. So see how you can get a smooth look, but then it's a very thin layer of paint, which is fine. You can, and don't forget to paint your edges here. You can go in with a nice thin layer of paint You'll just have to wait for that to dry and go in again. Versus here, I just dabbed it on, so it's nice and dark in this area at least. So I want to show you, if you were just to put it on with a smooth stroke, this is what you would get. Do you see how it's starting to pick up the paint a little bit there? It's not going on as evenly. See that, how it just picked up some paint there? So with the canvas, it's easier to pick up paint than it is with the paper. And if that's what you're going for, which I'm going to show you later, that I love doing that because you can bring in some beautiful highlights by picking up your paint, then canvas is for you, because it's easier to lift up the paint on canvas than it is with the paper. Okay, so I went ahead and I dried this, and you can see automatically the differences between the smooth brush strokes versus the one that I added extra water to it and just wanted to see that it would dry. You can see a lot more texture in here. Now, I love that look. If you don't love that look, then the smooth brush strokes is the way for you to go. But these are just, I wanted to show you that these are two differences, that if you just apply more water, this is the way it starts to evaporate and dry. This is smoother. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and add in more paint. I'm gonna pick up just the same colors that I was doing before. And I'm gonna go in and add in another layer. Now I want to show you something. Now that it's dried, do you see how it's starting to pick up? If I go over this again and again, do you see how it's starting to pick up that paint? It doesn't lay it down as nicely as the watercolor paper. So you just want to kind of go in with a light. See, it's not letting me put down a nice layer here. You just want to go in with a light hand and just kind of lay it down gently. Now, if I was to go in, like I love the look of texture, if you just go in and you just dab it, it will eventually start coming together. See how that's coming together now, and it's leaving a darker tone of the paint? And you can keep coming in and just dabbing a little bit more. The downfall of this is it takes a little bit longer to dry, but the plus is you get this beautiful, beautiful texture. So we're gonna go ahead and add some texture onto the smooth one right now. I'm going ahead and I'm adding a couple different colors of green here. I'm just dabbing it in because I love texture. Again, if you don't like that look, go ahead and make it smooth. And then what you could do is you can come in with just a clean brush and just apply water to it. See how I'm just applying puddles of water. And as that dries, it's going to create a beautiful, beautiful texture. That's one of the beauties of watercolor that I love, that it's just kind of a mystery of how it's going to end up looking. Because like right now it looks like this, but once it dries, it's going to look completely different. Versus oil and acrylic, once you apply it, that's it. That's the way it's going to look. See how it's already starting to puddle together and it's leaving some nice negative areas, some lighter areas in here. So it's just kind of got a mind of its own, and you just got to let it do its own thing and see how it dries. So it's kind of a mystery. It's kind of exciting because then you don't know how something's going to look once it's completed. I'm going to add another layer to this. I'm going to apply again. I'm dabbing it in. I'll go over my edge here to try and get a crisp line. I think I'm going to add in a little bit of pink. Down here. Now, I love vibrant colors in my paintings. You do not have to do this whimsical look at all. You can use browns and yellows and mustards and rust colors. If you like more of a natural look, then definitely do that. You do not have to copy my wild colors here. That's just, I'll show you actually a painting that I had finished last night on canvas. I just wanted to practice a little bit and just so I had one to show you today as I'm going along. So I'll show you that finished piece in a second here. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry. Actually, I think I'm gonna go ahead and apply more water drops just to see how it dries. Now see how that's puddling already? That is so cool. To me, that's gorgeous. All right, just applying water because I like that mystery of how it's gonna dry. But if you don't like that little surprise of how it's gonna dry, then the smoother look is the way for you to go. It's a little bit more predictable. Okay, so I went ahead and I dried the canvas with my heat gun, but I do have a couple little spots that are still wet. There was just a lot of water there, so it's taking a little bit longer to dry up. But I just wanted to show you the difference of adding water, all this beautiful texture that you get versus just smooth brush strokes. So it's two completely different looks. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start making my last hill here. And I think I'm gonna do that one with more of a yellow mixture right in the middle here. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add a little bit of orange now, just to give it a little bit more dimension. Maybe a little bit more down here. And then I'm going to add some water to it. Just to give it that texture as it dries. Let's go on to our sky. Since our sky is a bigger area, I'm just going to move to a bigger brush. All right, this part here, I'm going to want to do a wet on wet technique. And now see all these little water droplets I had from just picking up my water and just kind of going over my canvas. I have all these little oops marks right here. So I'm just going in with some water and it's taking them off beautifully. And let's go in with maybe a pinkish purple sky. So I'm gonna add some pink. I'm just gonna come in with some streaks. Okay, so that's our first layer, and for the most part, it is dry. There is some wet areas still on there, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and add more paint. And let's do pink again. And I'm just going in with a light hand again, because if you go in with a heavy hand, it will pick up your first layer. So I went in and I just applied a little bit more of some darker tones here. I applied a little bit of a darker brown down in this area. I applied some Payne's Gray in that area and a little bit more Payne's Gray in this area. And a little bit of Payne's Gray in this area. Now I was trying to apply the Payne's Gray down here in that smooth stroke like I was doing here, but it was just picking up my paint. So I ended up dabbing it on anyways down in this section here. So you'll see that there is a little bit of texture down in this section here. All right, so I want to show you how easy it is to lift up the paint since I've been talking about this the whole time. So let's go ahead and pop in some, clouds up in this area. So we'll just go in with just a clean brush and just kind of go in a circular motion. See how it picked up the paint? Now all you have to do is dab it off with a paper towel and you have a cloud. Okay. Not saying it's a very good cloud, but you do have a cloud. It picked up the paint there. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more down here. This is just to show you how easy it is to pick up this paint on canvas. Look at that. That's why it's hard to get a nice look like this, nice and smooth, because the more layers you add, it just wants to pick up your paint. Let's say you wanted to start all over again and you just hate your sky. Go ahead, apply water. I'm just going to show you how easy this is. Apply water to your sky. I know this is wasting paint, but let's say you were just so unhappy with it. Apply a good amount of water. Take a clean paper towel and just start taking it off. You will never get the white of the canvas again, maybe in certain areas, but it at least kind of erases it, takes it off. Go over it again. Look at that. I'm getting almost the white of the canvas back. And then you can start over again. Just keep reapplying the water. I'm being careful not to go all the way up to my hill because I'm gonna repaint the sky pink anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to show you. Look at that. Voila. You have almost the white of your canvas back. Maybe it's best if you just take it in little sections because it will start to dry on you and then you can't pull off as much. So I did that side of my canvas first and now this side. Look at that. That's amazing. Wow, that just erased my whole sky. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and reapply water because I do want my sky to be that pinky orange. So I'm gonna reapply it. I'm just putting down water right now. And then I will go back in with that pinkish color and reapply it. I think I'm going to pick up a little bit of red also, my crimson red. And I'm just going horizontal strokes with the sky. And I think I want to add back in a little bit of that orange. So let's go ahead and do that too. Pretty. And probably some purple back up on the top like I did before. So I just wanted to show you that you can take off this paint easily. All right, I'm gonna apply a little bit of water, give it some texture. And I'm gonna let that dry. And see how that dries. Okay, so I just want to stop the heat gun for a second and just showed you what I was doing. So I was actually blow drying this with the heat gun, and at the same time I was going over it with water to kind of move the paint around a little bit with the water and the heat at the same time. And it's giving you these beautiful, beautiful blooms of almost the white of the canvas showing through, so it's acting like the clouds. So I was doing them at the same time. So just be careful you don't burn yourself, and don't go obviously too close to your canvas or your hand or even your brush, because you could ruin your brush with the heat. So don't go too close, but gently add some water and just move the paint around even as you're drying it, and you can achieve these gorgeous, gorgeous blooms. So I just wanted to show you that, but I'm going to continue drying this. Okay, so before I speed up this video, because I don't want to bore you to death with all these different techniques here, so I will finish this canvas, but I'm going to do it more in a fast motion, just so you can kind of see me finishing this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a smaller brush, and I just want to show you how easy it is to take off the paint. I know I showed you that up here in the sky, but let's say you wanted some detailed areas. Let's say I wanted to add a flower down here. So I'm going to go in with my paint. Let's say I wanted to bring in a nice big floral right in this section. Actually, that brush is a little too small. Let's pick up a bigger one. So I'm just applying water. Get it nice and saturated. You can rub it in a little bit with your brush. Don't ruin the bristles of your brush, but you can rub it in a little bit just to help it along. And then take a paper towel and just dab it off. And if you wanted to add a flower there, a nice big flower or whatever in the foreground, or another hill or whatever, you could definitely do that. Let's say I wanted to add another one over here. I'm getting it saturated, rubbing it in a little bit. And then I will take it off with my paper towel. Right? Isn't that easy? Let's say I wanted to add a little house up here. Let's put a little, you know what, let's put like a little house right here. Let's say we wanted to add a little house right here in between all three colors here, just to show you how easy it is. Right in between the purple, the yellow, and the blue. You're gonna take a clean brush, add a little water. I'm just gonna make a little box here. Just a generic little house, little building. And I'm gonna lift up my paint. Now I can go ahead and drop in a little house right there. So I just wanted to show you how easy that is. You can even come in with some, like a tree or whatever. So it's easy. It's almost like you're carving out the paint. You're erasing it, which is amazing. To me, it's amazing because you can't do that with watercolor on paper. You can lighten up the area, but you can't definitely get rid of it like that. So it's amazing. So I love working with the canvas for, well, many different reasons, but that's definitely one of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish up this painting for you. And I may stop the video a couple times just to explain what I'm doing, but for the most part, I think I'm gonna speed up this video just to show you the process. Okay, so one more thing before I go ahead and speed up the video, I just wanted to show you the painting that I was talking about before that I had finished last night. So this is the same process I just showed you, straight watercolor on the canvas with the watercolor grounds that I had applied 2 coats. And I did go in certain areas with my Arteza watercolor brush pens, which is really nice. I'll probably even show you how to use that on this canvas as well. So I just wanted to show you how with that erasing kind of technique that I was talking about, all you have to do is just with a little bit of water and a fine brush, you can come in, and I carved out these little areas. This was done, actually these little circles here, this was done with a Q-tip. I just got the end of a Q-tip wet, and I just rubbed it on and made little circles here. So I'll show you how to do that also. And so then I just kind of took out some paint, some chunks of paint, and I put in this little bush tree looking thing here, these little floral looking things. So I carved all these out, kind of, you know, erasing it with the water. So I'm just gonna show you that. But look at this beautiful, beautiful texture that I was able to achieve with that wet technique dropping in the water. So I know I already showed you that, but I'm going to be probably putting in another layer of it on here too, just so you know what I'm doing. So this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is the one that I finished last night. This is the one we're working on now, and I'm hoping to get the same look on this canvas that I did with this canvas. So I just wanted to show you that before I go ahead and speed up the video. Okay, so I just wanted to stop the video here for a second and just show you. I had put a little bit of too much paint on these couple of trees up here, so I was actually using my canvas as a palette. So I was dabbing off some paint on that first tree, and then I was applying it to these trees down here. So you could do that too. Instead of dabbing it off and wiping it on your paper towel, if you know that you have other areas to cover with that same paint, go ahead and just treat it as a palette and pick it up and dab it off where you want it. So you're not wasting paint. So that's a little tip also. I just wanted to stop the video for a second and just show you that. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, I'm going to be starting to use the Arteza brand real brush pens. They're watercolor markers, and that works on the canvas as well. So you could just apply it and leave it, or you could apply it and add a little water to it, and it gives it a whole different look. You can kind of get some texture in there if you add a little bit of water. So that works, or you can just add it and leave it alone so it's nice and crisp. So I added this on the dry canvas. Then you can add a little water, or you don't have to add water and just leave it dry on dry. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of that as well. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you liked it and learned a little something. And if you did like it, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel for more videos like this one. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great day. Bye.